Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss Fantasy Formula 1. In today's video, we're going to discuss what happened in Austria, what implications that have for Silverstone, and what my planned transfers are for the British GP and beyond. So, if you're interested in that, stick around, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 5k before the end of the season. Thank you so much for your support. We're doing another deadline stream this weekend. Once again, as always, 2 hours before the deadline, 2 hours before qualifying, before the British Grand Prix on Saturday. So be there for that. You do not want to miss it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So we're back on the Blue Arrow train, a Blue Arrow up in Austria, and a good week all around. No point drops for me, no real price drops either. Could have been better in a few different instances, but we'll get to that. Piastri stayed with him, somehow outscored on the Norris thanks to the fastest lap that he got, 39 points, definitely happy with that. McLaren 100-pointer, the triple McLaren lineup looks strong this week, but even, the optimal teams for this week around the budget that I'm at weren't that much better than what my team was. 285 points in total, team value up to 118.6 million. I end up sticking with Ferrari, which was the correct decision. Those who switched to Mercedes got massively punished, and I really can only thank Ferrari's performance in FP3 for that, because before FP3 I was pretty dead set on making the transfer of Ferrari to Mercedes. After FP3, less so, and I ended up not making the move, which definitely was the correct play. Even if Kimi Antonelli hadn't dive bombed into Max Verstappen's gearbox on lap 1 into turn 3. Hadjar, a bit of a disappointment, only 6 points, only a 0.2 million price increase. Could have definitely been more there. The pace was definitely in the car. I don't know why. They pitted him immediately on lap 1 to get rid of the softs that he started on, to sort of use that safety car, but then he just didn't have the tires and ended up finishing outside the points. Alonso was the transfer in alongside Gasly. 12 points for Alonso instead of the points that Liam Lawson got. I will actually happily take the less points that Alonso got over Lawson with the 0.6 million price increase. I'm definitely happy with that transfer. And then I had Gasly in for Colapinto. And with Pierre Gasly, I just have to be happy that I didn't buy Sainz, right? I was considering Bortoleto as well, but not really. I can't really say that I was. I was looking at him, looking like, he was looking good, but I was always more in the line of Gasly or Sainz. And again, Bortoleto pops up with a 25-pointer with driver of the day, his first points finish of the season. But if Max and Antonelli hadn't crashed, he would have been P10. Would he have gotten the driver of the day then? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, frankly, Hulkenberg probably deserves the driver of the day more than Bortoleto. But it's another big point hole from a cheap asset that I'm missing out on. But I can't be too mad because I did avoid Sainz at least, and at least Gasly increased in price. So it is what it is. At least it didn't screw me over that much. Every time I've said that Gasly is an option, both this season and last season, he's ended up DNFing. So at least he didn't do that. And then Nico Hulkenberg. Nico Hulkenberg is just absolutely the GOAT. What is that now over the past 3 races? That is a whopping 52, 57, 67 points in 3 races for an asset that at that time before we all bought him cost 6 million. Absolutely bananas, and he is probably a mainstay in the team until we see anything to prove otherwise. It doesn't seem to matter where he qualifies, and he still just pops up in the points and a bunch of overtakes, really aggressive on the drive, on the strategy as well. Nico Hulkenberg and Alonso really must-haves for the Austrian Grand Prix. That was my tip of the week for the deadline stream, and that definitely ended up panning out. The only real mistake in this team is Gasly over Bortoleto, but it looked closer, and it's not like Gasly wasn't there in qualifying or in practice. He looked decent. It's just the race pace for the Alpine. Absolutely disgustingly terrible. So, with that said, I'm now on 6,700 overall, a blue arrow up. Perfect, we're back to it. I had my first red arrow of the season last week, so happy to be back on the blue arrow train. Let's see if we can push into the top 5k for the first time this season in Silverstone, and let's see what my plans are in Silverstone for how I will achieve that. So let's begin this transfer plan section, as we always do, by looking at the budget builder over on F1 Fantasy Tools. If you want to get access to F1 Fantasy Tools Premium, you can do so at a discount with my code, link in the description, or just do what it says above me. The interesting thing for Silverstone is that we have a very clear drop-off, in my opinion, in cheap assets availability. Ocon and Behrman both had a fantastic race in Austria, finishing P10 and P11 after, pretty poor qualifying performances. Ocon scoring 20 points, Behrman with a 14-pointer. Fantastic for them, fantastic for the asset, and as you can see over the past 2 races, they've actually racked up some points, meaning they're primed for price increases once again, just like they were at the start of the season. The Haas issues that we saw, sort of the midpoint of what we've had so far throughout the season, seem to have faded, and they seem to be back at their best and overtaking from far back in the grid and just staying on track and being menaces. And you can see a very clear drop-off from Behrman down to Colapinto. Behrman needing 4 points for a 0.6 increase, negative 2 points for a 0.2 increase, and then Colapinto needing all the way up to a 7-pointer, 11 for a 0.6 increase, 14 for Gasly, and then it keeps going down. Hadjar looks like a sell now for the first time this season, really. I'm not saying he has to be a sell, because we've seen what these cheap assets can do when the strategy is right, when the car is right for the specific track. I mean, in the past 3 or 4 races, we have had a B-tier cheap asset score 20 plus points, and that is not common. I will say that, like, we don't see that very often, that B-tier drivers score 20 plus points. Last year, that did not happen often, and now it's happened 3 times in a row, and I think it's just sort of a testament to how evenly split the midfield is, and with the different tire strategies that's going on and all of that, and them overtaking each other for positions, especially during these European circuits that we've been on now. I'm talking Spain and Austria, but also Canada, not European, but Europeans at heart. I do predict that these high points for these cheap assets are going to continue. We're going to see someone reach 20 points in the next race, and who's to say that that's not Hadjar, right? Hadjar could definitely be the one to do a Liam Lawson and pop up with a 6th place to 6th place finish, and in that case, we're looking at something like a 13-pointer, or perhaps higher up, getting something like 20-pointer if he performs worse in qualifying, though I don't really see that happening with Hadjar specifically. But Hadjar could definitely reach 18 points. Like, if you had asked me 5 races ago if I think Hadjar or any driver of the B tier would end up reaching an 18-pointer for a +6 increase, I would have told you no, that doesn't happen. But we've seen that happen 3 times now, so I really can't say no anymore. So I don't even think Hadjar is a must sell. It's just that these 5 assets up here are so good. Alonso down to Behrman. And I do think that's the pool of drivers that we should be pulling from when making our transfers on our cheaper assets in Silverstone. But you already know this. This is not controversial. We've done this for the entire season. This page has been our cheat code, and it's worked out quite well so far. I will say, however, I do think we do need to look at things like Hadjar, things like Lawson as well. Lawson with a 13-pointer in this race. Obviously, he still has the DNF from the race before that. It's at 4.5 million. For Spa, could be a fantastic option at 4.5 million, especially if you're looking to switch to a 2-2 lineup there. What's a 2-2 lineup? A 2-2 lineup is a lineup with 2 premium drivers and 2 premium constructors. It's the sort of build we're all building our budget towards, so we can afford it for the later half of the season. And Lawson, I think, is going to be a fantastic option for that once that DNF is out of there. Sainz with another DNF when he looks primed for a price rise. Him and Gasly have really been the 2 drivers this season to have 2 decent results and then DNF, and 2 decent results and then DNF. And Gasly broke that streak in this race, but he broke that streak by scoring a 2-pointer, and now he looks bad for the next race, right? Sainz is probably primed for another 1.8 million decrease in price. Well, he just decreased 0.6 million. He's gonna decrease 0.6 million in Silverstone, and probably decrease 0.6 million in Spa, unless he can, pull out a 35-pointer out of nowhere, and he's the one that goes from P20 to P9, right? And I'm just looking at Sainz decreasing another 1.2 million right here down to 6.5. I can't see how he won't be like the best option for the end of the season. I mean, the Williams definitely do have pace when their car is not exploding, but there is something to be said about the Williams not having the reliability that we would want from a F1 fantasy asset. That is now 3 DNFs in a row for Albon, who started the season amazingly well. And if you've held Albon throughout the spell, I mean, I'm not saying it's season over, but it's really, really, really bad for you. And I am not going to touch any Williams assets until we see an uptick in their reliability. And especially, given give the summer break, and then after the summer break, sides being at what, like 7 or like 6.5 or like 7-ish million could be really, really good value for money. So my eye is on signs for later on in the season, but definitely not now. Definitely a sell for now. Moving on to the premium assets, I think there's not really much to say here. We do have Russell, who still looks good. I think Russell Piastri is probably the ideal 2-2 lineup that if you could afford, you should probably look towards it. But one thing that I was discussing in my transfer plans video and in the videos leading up to Austria was Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli did decrease 0.6 million, meaning we now have it confirmed that the drop-off between Tier A and Tier B is actually 18.5 million. I don't know why it's 18.5, why it's not 19, why it's not 20, but it is 18.5 million. Antonelli decreased 0.6 million, meaning that he is likely to keep decreasing 0.6 million if he can't perform in the next race. Granted, he could definitely reach a 31-pointer. He did that with the podium in Canada. But I'm not one to predict that Antonelli is going to end up on the podium in Silverstone, especially with that 3-place grid penalty that he now has for Silverstone for causing the collision with Max in Austria. So the lineups with Antonelli, with like a Piastri Antonelli lineup with 2 premium constructors, I was super interested in that for Silverstone before this crash. Now less so. Yep. I think Silverstone now has, this Antonelli crash, I suppose, has sort of given us a bit of time for those of us on slightly lower budgets to work on our budget so that we can afford Piastri Russell instead. I think that the Piastri Antonelli lineups could perform well, but we need to see Mercedes be on it in Silverstone. And if the temperature in England is anything to go off of right now, as it is currently at the time of recording this, I don't think Mercedes is going to perform particularly well. So this is what my team is looking like currently. 4 million in the bank. Price increases all around. We love to see it. Transfers for Silverstone. Well, I have some options. I'm going to go through the crazy options first and then give you what I'm more than likely to do. I mean, the standard option. So the Kimi Antonelli build is possible for me, right? I would like to remove, or I would like to keep Hülkenberg, right? So it would have to be for Hadjar if I was to even consider it. The problem here is that then I'm quite far away from Mercedes, so I have to downgrade something else. If I do it for Gasly, down to the only 4.5 million asset in Liam Lawson now, I still cannot afford it, meaning I can't afford Piastri, Antonelli, Hülkenberg, Alonso, McLaren, and Mercedes, meaning that this build is definitely off the cards because I'm not getting rid of Nico Hülkenberg. The only way to get an Antonelli Piastri build into this team is to get rid of Hülkenberg, and I don't see the value in doing that right now, if I'm honest. And this would also require Mercedes to look really, really fast, right? So keeping Pierre Gasly in there and selling Hadjar and Hülkenberg, I could switch to this team, right, for 3 free transfers, which it is a team, right? I'm not saying this team is bad. It could definitely perform, but I'm really missing Hülkenberg in here. If Gasly here was Hülkenberg, I would be way more inclined to actually go for this. But I just don't. I'm not even really particularly close to that in budget. I'm 1.5 million away since Hülkenberg is at 7.8 million. So therefore, this is not an option. Again, Mercedes really isn't an option either for me unless they show it in practice like they did in Canada. So the other crazy option is to actually switch to triple McLaren. McLaren brought a lot of upgrades to Austria, and they seem to be working. It really wasn't close to the Ferraris at all. It was just Lando and Oscar fighting each other. So I could switch to a triple McLaren build with a cheap constructor. That cheap constructor would have to be SAUBER. I was talking about getting Aston Martin because Aston Martin looked good in practice, but I mean, the SAUBER just keeps scoring points, right? So getting SAUBER in here and then Hadjar out would allow me to go for Lando Norris. This is just 2 free transfers, though I wouldn't want to get rid of Gasly as well for Bortoleto. So essentially switching to a triple McLaren, triple SAUBER build plus Alonso. If you had told me at the start of the season that I would be considering this at all, I would have told you that you were crazy. But I am considering this, like actually considering this. If McLaren are as fast as we expect them to be, I mean, Silverstone with the high-speed corners as well could be a brutal like washout in terms of McLaren 1-2ing it. This is an option. 3 free transfers, and I get here. It builds budgets. Lando, Piastri both look good, right? It is tempting. I don't know if it's something I'm likely to go for, but granted that, you know, the last 3 races have been really good for SAUBER, and even if they score 25 to 30 points, I still think this probably can at least match McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri teams, right? Especially if Norris and Piastri are 1-2. So as long as SAUBER scores like 30-ish points, it could be good. And like with the 45 points they scored this week, this team was actually optimal compared to the team that I had. Now, granted, a lot of that was Bortlett's 25-pointer that I missed out on. If I'd had that, it would have been way closer. But still, I am considering this. I'm not saying I will go for it, but I definitely am considering it. The boring option then, and I know it's boring, is just to do Hadjar and Gasly out and delay the switch to a 2-2 lineup for as long as possible. And I mean, the assets I would want, the first one is Bortoleto. I don't want to go without him for this race. And then after that, I have 11.8 million to essentially pick one of the Haas drivers. Depending on budget, I mean, Ocon is more expensive, but I am more interested in Ocon. The thing with Esteban Ocon, though, is like, again, because he's more expensive, it's probably more transfers later to switch to a 2-2 lineup. But again, but this could just be Behrman as well. Behrman is owned by 43% of people. That is also in my evaluation that, you know, Ocon is more of a differential. This is 2 free transfers. I do have 3 free transfers. I should state that because I only used 2 of my 3 free transfers last week, or for Austria rather. So with this, I save a transfer for Spa. I have 3 free transfers going into a sprint weekend where I might want to make larger changes. It is the boring move, but it's probably a move that is going to be the safest, I would say, especially if, you know, if I go for triple McLaren and the McLarens crash into each other again, then that could be detrimental to my season, not just my weekend, right? So, but ultimately, when it comes to transfers, there's no way I'm getting rid of Piastri, Hülkenberg, Alonso, or McLaren. Realistic, like those 4 assets are not leaving my team no matter what happens in practice, unless like Alonso crashes, then it's out for the race. I don't know. Meaning that the 3 transfers that I'm even considering are these 3, right? It's Hadjar, it's Gasly, it's Ferrari. Ferrari's probably staying, but if I want to switch to a SAUBER, or if Mercedes looks good for some reason, I could switch to that. And then Hadjar and Gasly going out for better budget, cheap assets. But I do not see myself transferring Alonso or Hülkenberg out at this point for literally any reason whatsoever. So this is likely to stay in my team. Likely transfer is just to get Bortoleto in, get Ocon or Behrman in, stick it safe, and wait for some more exciting plays, either in Spa, but actually probably in Hungary. And I will discuss that briefly. Is that in a sprint race, cheap assets could be better, and we've discussed this before. It's the same reason why Limitless is better in a single weekend rather than a sprint weekend, right? The cheaper assets can do overtakes in sprints, which are worth more compared to what the big tier A assets score for just finishing first, second, third, right? Because you only get 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 points for a sprint race, meaning that it might not even be optimal to switch to a 2 premium lineup, a 2-2 lineup in Spa. And especially because Kimi Antonelli now had this crash, especially because budgets are just short of being able to afford like the Piastri Russell teams that we've been interested in. I do think Hungary could be the right option now to switch to that, especially to combat those who still have their Limitless and are looking to use their Limitless in Hungary, right? If you can switch to a 2-2 lineup in Hungary, a low overtake track, where we expect the cheap assets to not score as high and not reach those 20 pointers that we've seen them reach recently. Having 2 premium drivers and 2 premium constructors in that race could definitely be the best strategy here. So that is what I'm looking at currently. And I do think right now, unless something major changes, that is what I'm aiming towards. I'm going to rock a cheaper lineup in Silverstone with either just making the 2 free transfers, keeping Ferrari, or switching to a kick build triple McLaren. Or and then do whatever cheap moves I can in Spa to still make the team make sense, and then switch to the 2-2 lineup in Hungary to combat Limitless users. as well as just scoring as many points as possible in a difficult overtaking track. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you got some sort of information from it. I will post another video with my final thoughts on Thursday or Friday, and then of course we have the deadline stream on Saturday. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.